Dave, the Honest Audiophile here. Good morning to you all. Hopefully, you're having a good Saturday morning. And we are live from Logansport, Indiana. Yes, that is where I live, in a little town that's kind of in between Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Lafayette. So it's kind of like right in the middle of all of those. And bright, sunny, shiny day here in Indiana. Hopefully, you all are having some good weather and enjoying your time. If you can give a thumbs up in the chat if everything sounds good and all that kind of stuff, and we'll get this live stream rolling here. It's good to see all of you this morning. And I don't know about you, but I stayed up way too late watching basketball. Excellent game last night between Purdue and Houston. And that was quite the ending to a game that was very well played. It was a hard fought victory for Houston, and thoroughly enjoyed that. I was not cheering for Purdue, even though their campus is about 40 miles from here. I was not. I'm not a Purdue fan. I actually am a Hoosier fan, so I'm an IU fan and Notre Dame Irish for football. But anyways, so hopefully you all are having a great day. It's a good start to your day, and give us a thumbs up in the chat and ask away, ask questions. Today is your day to pick my brain and see if you know see what's on your mind. So ask away. I have nothing planned for today, so it's all up to you. This is a live stream for you all to ask questions, chat about basically anything that you want, and I have, if you want to talk about sports, we can. If you want to talk about audio, we can. Coffee, beverages, what you're eating for breakfast this morning. Some of you may be lunchtime, and some of you may be just rolling out of bed on the Pacific coast there. So it was, about the time that it's 11 o'clock here in Indiana, and so I was like, well, when do we do this live stream to kind of make it easy for everybody? And there's not really a time that is just like, everybody is awake, because we all have different times in the world. So some are behind, some are in front, some are way in front, some are way behind, and all that kind of stuff. So just trying to find a time that we all can get together. More Frank, it's thank you for joining, appreciate it. Hello from South Korea. It is midnight Sunday. Yeah, you're way ahead. That's a long ways there. Wow. So I got a few hours before we get to that time frame on Sunday. It's hard. It's when you live 12 hours behind, it's really hard to conceive sometimes to go, they're already into tomorrow, and we're going to experience that later on. So that's kind of crazy. I've never traveled anywhere eastward, so Korea's always been a place I've liked to visit. I've always kind of wanted to visit Asian countries. It's just an experience I want to go to. I want to also go to Australia at some point, and I would love to take a visit through Europe and see all the sights and sounds there too. It's on my bucket list. But I have stayed in the Americas and in the Caribbean for my travels. So actually, I've never been to South America. Been North America and the Caribbean. So um, kind of stayed close to home, I guess, if you want to call it that. Good morning, Carmine. Thank you for swinging by. And is it still cold up there in the Canada area, or is it starting to warm up for you guys? Normally, Canada's a little bit chillier than we are here in the Midwest around this time of year. Watching videos from the Montreal Audio Fest. Cool. Did you attend Montreal? It's a little bit of a trek for you because I believe you're in the Toronto area. Um, but did you get to head on over? It's damp and slightly freezing. It's about 60 here, so it's about double the temperature for you, and it's bright sunshine. So um, hopefully it clears up for you and you can enjoy some sunshine, Carmine. Anybody experience anything new in audio? I've got a couple of things in. So one thing, sorry about the mess on my desk, but we have this little device here, which is a Burson Playmate 3. A review of that will be coming out in a few weeks or so. We also have this device, which is something that I didn't think I would get back into using. It's the SMSL PL100. It's a CD player, and normally for the last 6 years or so, I've just taken CDs and downloaded them and then run them out of Audiophile. I haven't really used physical discs other than in my car when I'm driving around. So a little bit different of a device to use. So that'll be an interesting one. Also got a little gaming DAC amp to review. That's from Doak Audio. I've got one from Creative. Also have one in from Fosse Audio. And then I don't know if you'll be able to see it here on camera or not. But we also have this one, which is a little tube amp from Doak Audio. It's called the P1 Plus. Whoops. And interesting little device. And a bunch of other things for turn on camera. So I got a few things in house to review. Let's see here. Catch up on a couple of comments. I frequently visit the US, EU, and Australia for business trips. That's cool. Once every 2 or 3 months. IEMs are the best friends during the travels. Absolutely. I actually, when I travel, especially on airplanes, I prefer IEMs than over ear headphones. And I'm not a big fan of noise cancel headphones either. So if I do take a headphone along, I actually prefer it not to have noise canceling. Noise canceling kind of messes with me, and I get like vertigo feeling. At least in the ones that I've experienced when I'm traveling. And I'm not a big fan of flying either. It's just not something that I like to do. If possible, I'd prefer to drive somewhere where I'm going, if it's all at all possible. All right, let's see. Carmine. I go to Toronto Audio Fest. Same show, but it's always interesting. Currently keeping an eye out for more moderately priced goodies. Got some of those coming up on the channel, so just spoiler alert. Let's see here. John Shepler, if I remember correctly, you do church mixing. Do you use headphones or speakers in your mixing setup? So I actually don't do mixing. I do monitoring, and I run the soundboard. So like mixing, I guess you would mix the sound, EQ it. So we have speakers set up in that area because it's playing back while the service is going on during the live service. But for my monitoring purposes, I actually use IEMs. And for a while, when I first started doing that, I was using headphones and I was constantly having to take them on and off, to check. I still do that with IEMs in, but I find that IEMs give me a more accurate representation of what's going on and a little bit more intimate. I can hear a little bit better, more of the, hidden stuff that you need to correct. So I prefer IEMs when I'm monitoring. And then for speakers, it's a big, huge, church setup type of thing. Good question though. Let's see here. May I ask to review upcoming schedules? Sure. So I don't have um things set in stone right now, but I will list off the stuff that we have in. So I kind of take it what's been sitting around a little bit longer, and what has requirements. And if certain things, some manufacturers ask for like a month or 6 weeks, or things like that. And so I'll take that into consideration over things that don't quite have a time restraint on it. And then part of it also kind of comes up to what's ready. What do I feel comfortable to review? Type of stuff. But anyways, what's on the schedule in no particular order at the moment? The FIO FH19, Tin Hi-Fi C225, the Tin Hi-Fi C3 Mark III, the Orivetti OD200, the Orivetti Lowmaster, the Orivetti Dynabird, the Kiwi Ears Aether, or Ether. I'm not exactly sure which way they're pronouncing it. I'll have to look that up. The Sansei Miori SW500H, the Doak Audio P1 Plus, which we just mentioned, FIO KA15, the Sansei Miori SA500, the Aiko ITM07, Sound Blaster G8, Fosse Audio GR40, Fosse Audio MC331, the Fosse Audio K7, the SMSL D400 Pro, Doak Audio K5, FIO S15, and FIO K17, Burson Audio Playmate 3, and the X Duo X5. Now, a couple of those may not actually get reviewed. It just kind of depends as how the process goes. But that's all that's in right now currently to review. And I don't have anything listed for next week yet, so I haven't decided which one I was going to review. And as mentioned, it kind of just depends on what I feel comfortable with reviewing, and if there's anything that has time constraints, and that sort of stuff. Good question. All right, let's see here. If you have questions and I haven't gotten to them, I am working through it as they come in. So I go in order. If I haven't answered it, or if I accidentally skip over it, I apologize. Just ask it again, and I'll gladly get to it. All right, next up we have Merc. Those are a roster of interesting amp players. Had tested those myself. All are interesting. Cool. John, I don't like the noise canceling period. I don't like the way it changes the sound. Yeah, so that's one aspect of it. Noise canceling does seem to alter the sound signatures, and I have noticed that in the various headphones. Some of them are better than others. Some of them don't alter as much. But I tend not to listen to it with noise canceling on unless I really need the noise canceling, or I find that it sounds okay. For the most part, I usually just go without. Also, the other thing with it is I do get like this vertigo feeling. I start getting sick to my stomach and get real bad headaches. And so it's just kind of weird how whatever noise canceling, however it works, it just kind of interacts with my body that way. Let's see. Sparky Motive. Good morning, fellow cartoon-based beings. Okay. Oh, sorry, carbon-based beans. I was like, cartoon. I'm not a cartoon. Wow. I've been up for a couple hours. I still can't read. Okay, let's see. IEMs are the best bang for the buck in audio. Probably. I mean, you can get some really good value with headphones now. There are some more budget-friendly headphones that are pretty quality that are coming out. But IEMs, you do have more variety, and so I can see that argument for sure. Let's see. Interesting take on the monitoring preference. It's the reverse for me. I prefer headphones, but I'm an old timer. I understand that. I mean, I'm not a youngster either. I am 49 years old. So I think it kind of comes down to use case and maybe like the settings that you're in. Um, I I don't know. I don't really think that there's a particular this is the only way to monitor, with headphones or speakers or with IEMs. I think it does come down more to what you prefer and what you feel you're getting the most um of what you need to get your sound accurate. Um but for me, it's probably about 50%. I have them in, 50% I don't. I never go through a full service with them in my ears. So part of it, cables are not quite as long, and I'm standing up and moving around and doing things, and so you're kind of limited in that regard. Other part is I want to be able to hear what's going on live. All right, let's see. Tony, I just watched your video about the CD900 ST a couple of days ago. It's so informative. Thank you. Hey, you're welcome. It's a very interesting headphone. So, if you go Sony MDR 7506, or if you go with the CD900, I do recommend changing the pads. I do think that the Yaxi pads that I mentioned in that review help those headphones out. The 7506, not comfortable with the stock pad. You kind of have to change pad, but I can't remember what pad it was that I preferred on the Sony. But they're very, very good headphones. Both of them very similar-ish. Um, Young, yeah, it's gonna be a busy day. Busy days with the review schedule. It always is here. There for a while, I had roughly about 45 things in for review, and I was just like, I had, you get to that point where do I begin? And when will I ever get caught up? And so I had to make some changes and how I do reviews as far as scheduling and getting how many videos a week and that sort of stuff. And so that kind of relieved the stress level a little bit and kind of helped. And then there was a lot of things going on personal life here at home and work that was also adding in a lot of stress. Thankfully, that has lessened a little bit over the last month or so. Let's see here. Ever come across Hi-Fi Serenade? I have one, really like it, but not sure if I should upgrade to a Pontus 15th with the AUN S17 or similar headphone amp. Have not heard of Pontus, have not heard of Serenade. Do apologize. I want to hear them, but I just haven't gotten to. If I heard them at an audio show last year that I attended, I don't recall them. So sorry about that. All right, let's see here. It seems that Chinese companies are trying to exclude proven Knowles or Sony BA drivers. I'd like to listen to your opinion on this cost reducing trend. So Sonyans do tend to be more expensive. Knowles, the higher end stuff, now I don't know all the model numbers, are competitive to Sonyans in that price point. And yes, there are a lot of cheaper variants. There's also a couple other manufacturers. So are they cheaping out? Yeah. Who wouldn't as a manufacturer? If you're trying to really just get something out there and trying to provide a product that's listenable and people are going to purchase, and you're going for a budget price, but also, is it hurting in the long run? I think you could put out a better product, do a little bit better research, charge a little bit more. And I think if people hear the better product, and compare it to some of the lesser, stuff that it's not quite on par quality wise, they might be willing to pay more money. And it depends on your use case. It depends on how much a consumer values as far as cost. There's going to be pros and cons for each way. For me personally, as a consumer, if I know that there's high quality stuff inside it and I know that it sounds it and it's going to improve the sound versus using a lower quality this and that, not just because something's cheaper means it's not as good, more of if I know that it's quality and worth the cost, I'm going to be willing to pay that cost. It's kind of like, do you go and buy some no-name knockoff pair of shoes, or do you buy a higher quality pair of shoes? And are you willing to pay that difference because what you're going to get? For me personally, I prefer Merrell shoes, and they are way significantly more expensive than some things that I could buy at Payless or buy at Walmart or wherever you can get other shoes. But I also know they're going to last me because of my experience. I also know that they're well built, they're quality, they have good warranties and that sort of thing. So it kind of depends on where you balance your value. As far as manufacturers cutting corners, that's a business thing that happens all the time. That happens with my company that I work for. They do that all the time. So it's an interesting process that and choice that they're making, but I think they're just trying to get out a whole lot of quality out, or not quality, quantity out there for people to purchase, and they're not putting the focus on the quality because they just want the money. They just want the purchases, the funds. Hopefully that makes sense. But yes, if these manufacturers would do a little bit more research, spend some more time, some more money into doing better builds, better using better quality components inside their gear, and not pushing things out every month or every week as it seems on some of them, I think you would get a better quality product, and people would be more willing to purchase it because of that, even though it's more expensive. Because think about it, as a consumer, if you're constantly buying the newest hype thing that's under $25, and let's say you buy one a month, in 4 months you spent $100. In a year you spent $300. If your budget's $50 or whatever, it keeps going up. You keep spending, but you're purchasing more and more. But if you actually waited because you know that a quality product's coming out, because the same manufacturer that you love that's making these cheaper, ones that are spitting out every month, if you save your money, you will spend approximately the same amount of money for a better product. And you won't have a bunch of ones that are just sitting around and you're just doing nothing with. That's my logic. Anyways, good question. Hopefully that answered it. Long-winded, rambled. It's early in the morning. I ramble all the time. All right. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, let's see here. Carmine, 49. I don't think I can remember my 49th. You know what, though? Watching your videos where you're running around doing your gun shootings and stuff, you act like a 49-year-old. I wouldn't have known it. All right, so let's see here. Tony, I have I have a question. Is it a good idea to get the MDR CD900s? I actually have ATH M50X, and I have a chance to Japan, or go to Japan. I'm filling in the blank there. So I think I might get an MDR CD900 and the new pads as well. So it's been a long time since I heard an M50X or a CD900. If I remember correctly, now this is going off of 49-year-old memory, about 2 years or so, I think, since I've heard either one. The CD900 is going to be a little bit warmer, and it's going to be a little bit more, slightly more mid-forward. The M50X is going to be a little bit brighter, and it's going to have a little bit thinner of a note weight. It's not going to be quite as full and lush sounding as the CD900, Not saying either one of them are super warm or super lush. Okay. But I think the 900 will have a little bit more of that fullness, a little bit more body, but it's also going to be a little bit more mid forward. The M50X is a little bit brighter. The M50X may have a slightly more detail retrieval and resolution also. Um, I think that's kind of the differences. I mean, imaging wise, the M50 may be slightly better, but again, remember it's been about 2 years since I've heard them, and I'm going off of memory here. So, um, forgive me if I get that a little askewed. If anybody in the comments has a comparison between the two, that might be helpful too. But that's kind of the way I remember the two. I would say if you can get a good deal on a CD900, why not take the chance along with the pads? But that's me. So I I wish I had a definitive comparison, but I don't. I honestly don't remember them enough. Um, all right, let's see here. The Dazi CCA CST is sold for $6 in your country. Is it worth it, or should I save and invest on a Tanzu One Year Studio? I would go with the 1 Year Studio. I know it'd probably take you a little bit longer to save up for that. I don't know exactly how much the Studio Edition is in your country, but the 1 year, even the Studio Edition, the original, is a little bit warmer, a little bit more natural sounding, whereas the Studio has a little bit more detail, resolution. It's a little bit brighter, but compared to the CST, you're going to get better resolution. You're going to get better detail retrieval. CST is going to be a little more bassy, fun leaning sound. Let's see. Some avoid branded drivers, other lean into them like Zygot. Yeah, I mean, there's uh, personally for me, I think it's unique when things are built in house. Now I understand you're going to have, OEM, you're going to have branded type stuff. I get that. Um, but I actually, I have this like, I prefer Sonian when we're going BA. I think Sonians sound the most natural and the most neutral. Also, they do a really good job with detail retrieval and resolution. The higher end Knolls, like TWXs, things like that, also are very good, but not quite on the same level as a Sony. I do prefer Sony. That's just my preference. But there's something about in-house and custom in-house made type stuff that I'm like drawn to. And it doesn't matter if it's IEMs, it's headphones, speakers, DAX amps, thing. I love in-house type built because it adds this little like personality and this intimacy to that company. And so I like to be able to hear what they prefer. It's almost like you're getting a look into what that company likes. It's like talking to a family and learning about the family type of thing. That's the way I look at that. Carmine, do you have family members who are at least curious as to good sound, and what happens when you introduce them to great sound? Okay, so the only person I've introduced to great sound is my wife, and my wife plays 5 instruments. She really doesn't have a super big interest in headphones or IEMs, speakers, things like that. Now she recognizes, a bad recording versus a good recording, things like that. And she has really good ears. She can point things out to me. Women have a uniqueness about being a little bit more. She can be pretty nitpicky. But when it comes to like purchasing stuff, she's content with Bluetooth. I'm so okay, that's cool. As far as other family members, I haven't really introduced anything. My brother-in-law has a little bit of a interest in it. Back several years, he's kind of taken a backseat to it. Other things have taken priority in his life. Other hobbies have come along, and so music is more of just, hey, I have these headphones, I have these speakers, and I'm good, you know. Um, so yeah, as far as family members, I haven't really introduced, but most of my family members don't live anywhere nearby, especially on my side of the family. When I mention, you know, hey, this costs this much, I got this, it costs this much, or this, they're just like, who would spend that much money? I mean, that's just ridiculous. So, um, yeah. All right, let's see. Um, CCA Rhapsody, another fun set was ruined. I didn't hear the CCA Rhapsody. Sorry. All right, let's see. Joe Voss, what is your opinion on the whole there are no discernible differences between DAX debate? Well, I'll just flat out say it. I hear differences in DAX. Now, the argument, okay, so the argument is a DAC chip should sound the same. I won't dispute that. So if you're just going based off of a DAC chip, okay, and you're playing back numbers and converting it to analog using the most purest, most perfect playback that you can get, you shouldn't hear a difference between DAC chips. But that's not where DACs end. So within DACs, you have all sorts of other components inside a DAC system, right? You have op amps, you have wiring, you have other chips, you have your output stage, you have your preamp stage, you have all these other things that go into a DAC. All of those can make differences. Also, on top of that, a lot of the DACs, especially the newer DAC chips, have EQs that the manufacturer can check. They have filter settings that they can select when building the DAC before it even goes out to the consumer. It's already pre-programmed. You know, they select all this various stuff. All of that can make a DAC sound different, and all of the different DAC makers have all their different. Every person has their own. Um, iFi has their own, topping, SMS. They all have different things that they put into their DAC. So yes, I hear a difference between DACs, and that's because I've never heard just a DAC chip. I've and compared DAC chip, DAC chip, DAC chip, and in theory, DAC chips should all sound the same. It's all the other stuff that makes a DAC sound different. So somebody who comes out and says DACs don't make a difference, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. DACs do make a difference. They do sound different. It's not like most of them are subtle, slightly different, but there is differences, in my opinion. Good question. All right. Held back by poorly tuned BAs, vocals and instruments felt artificial and foggy. Okay, so that must be about the Rhapsody. Glad I didn't hear it. It doesn't sound like something I would enjoy. Shawshank, hey, what ear tips did you use on the Meze Elba while testing it? Also, can you suggest an ear tip for the Elba? I don't remember on the video. Normally, if I use alternate tips, I'll mention it in the video. Let me see if I can. That's the ad bar. Looks like stock tips, but are currently on them. But I honestly don't recall about the video. I would go back through the video and see if I mentioned it. I honestly do not recall off the top of my head. Carmine, yeah, I'm in the senior division. I guess you could call it. Or you are in the senior division. I'm headed towards the senior division. Let's see. Tony, you're very welcome. Oh, the 1 year 2 is about to come out. That'll be interesting. There are several variants of the 1 year. I prefer the original over the studio, but I appreciate what the studio does. So it's not a bad IEM at all. It's just a little bit different of a tuning. curious to see if the one or two kind of merges those tunings together. That would be an interesting. Alternate cable. Again, I don't remember if I mentioned an alternate cable on the Alba review, but I think I did. It would probably make a slight difference. Cables are one of those topics that ruffle feathers. But if you're finding it a little bit too bright, a little too forward, I'd probably go with a copper cable. If you're finding that it's a little too dull, I would go with a pure silver cable. If you're just trying to even it out a little bit overall, maybe go with a hybrid cable of some sort. I haven't heard the Chimera Ace. A cable that I would recommend that's a little bit on the cheaper side would be the Dunu Lear Mini. Something like that would probably be a nice balance with the Elba, but I don't recall if I actually advised using an alternate cable or not. Normally I try to stick with the stock. Let's see. As far as the balanced part, it depends on what your source is. Balanced, it doesn't fix everything, and balance isn't always necessary. You can, if it's a good single-ended source, can sound just as good as a balanced source in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to using like IEMs and stuff. But balance sounds good also. If you need a little extra power, bring it out, or if your source just has balanced out. Companies like SimGot do make custom DEs. I'm not sure about others. Yeah, I mean, there is, custom stuff. Again, you're taking an OEM and you're customizing it yourself. You're tweaking it. And then there are the in-house built stuff. So yeah, manufacturers do custom stuff quite a bit, which is good. Let's see, Supermix 4 Dynamics is very speedy. Fits well with the other drivers in its configuration. Haven't heard the Supermix. Curious about it. Carmine, your explanation of the DAX differences is perfect. They all convert data to a standard, but it's always output and power supplies that make a difference. Absolutely. I haven't done, some people say that power supplies and USBs make differences. Power supplies, yes. I haven't done really the USB test thing, and I have some different USB cables. I can't really say that I've ever heard a difference by plugging in a different USB. Now, I've had a couple of USB cables that have been faulty, which have caused problems. And then the problem just disappears once you put a different USB cable on. But I can't honestly say I hear a difference between USB cables. That one seems a little fishy. But as far as power supplies definitely can make a difference. Cleaner, more clarity, more power, more dynamics, that type of thing. Okay. So thank you for the compliment. Appreciate that. Joe Voss, thank you so much for your answer. And yes, I agree. I do hear differences. Awesome. All right. So, Central. Hi, Dave. Do you plan to review the FIO FT1 Pro? I know you didn't care much for the FT1, but the Pro seems to be quite a different headphone by most metrics. If one's provided, sure, I'll give it a listen. It is obviously different being planar versus a dynamic. It's not that I didn't care for the FT1. It's the FT1 just didn't jive with me, and it has this intensity about it that just really was fatiguing and painful for me. Some people hear that presentation, others don't, and it just, my ears, and it just was like, oof. Does a lot of things right. It's just too intense for me to listen to. All right, let's see. Carmine, cables. They have a slight difference, but find something that doesn't tangle, no microphones and good connection. Absolutely. Most of the time when I'm swapping a cable isn't because of the sound signature. It's because of the build tangliness, the microphonics, or the sound that it makes when it bangs up against things or moves around. I've had ones that were so bad with the ear hooks and the, going down to the split that it's just like making noise every time you move your head around. That type of stuff. That's usually why I change a cable. Slight differences when it comes to silver and copper or hybrids. You can get a little bit differences there, here or there. It depends on sources and IEM and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that takes a lot to come together, but you can hear differences every now and then. All right, let's see here. The real deal with USB cables is shielding, its ability to resist interference. Yeah, absolutely. I had just actually this week. I was hooking up something over here to my speakers, and the cable that I had, I can't remember which DAC it was. And I had it connected to the speakers, and there was just this hum. It was just, and I was like, never hear that. That's never a problem. And so I reached over and changed out the USB cable. Issue gone. I was just like, I don't know what the deal was, but the USB cable that I was using was like super thin and very long and extremely, it was flimsy. Felt like it was cost $1. And so, yeah, you can definitely get some USB cables that are cheaply made, but you can get speaker cables that way, headphone cables, all that kind of stuff. All right, let's see. Recently, I've been hearing that cables can contribute to impedance. If you have a super sensitive hybrid IEM, I could see it affecting sound somewhat. Yeah, absolutely. There are differences in impedance in cables, and that can cause issues, or alter the sound completely. Experienced that a few times. You're like, whoa, why all of a sudden is it doing this? Type of thing. Also, your output impedance from your devices that you're using, your sources, can have an effect on that. Let's see. I have tried 6 types of USBs. They all sound the same. I would say that the port makes a difference because of the bandwidth. It does show between a 2 or 3.1 port in PCs, even a USB to USB-C. Yeah, that's very true. And that definitely could probably make some. I'm not a PC guy. I'm not a hardware guy. I have really I'm way out of my element. So this is just pure speculation on my part. But I could see hardware differences definitely making a difference there, for sure. Let's see. Minimum quality should matter, but a simple Amazon Basics should make it sound great. Yeah, I mean, I have so many different cables. Normally, I go with the stock one, but sometimes manufacturers don't include a cable, so you just use one. I've bought in some, of the more expensive audiophile ones, and just to try, I don't hear really a difference at all. And Contrail, or is it Central? Either kind of. I need new glasses. Um, you're welcome. Glad you found it to be helpful. All right, I think we're caught up on comments. If you sent one in and I didn't get to it, please resend it, and I'll be glad to answer your question. But yeah, so the DAC thing, the USB cable thing, and some of the other more, I guess some people call them snake oil, has been kind of going about on the YouTube circles as of late. And I always find it interesting because when a reviewer, will come out and be like, I don't hear any differences in DACs. DACs don't make a difference. It's all about your amp, it's all about your headphone or your IEM, it's about the transducer only. That's what makes a difference. I sit there and go, I don't know how you can say that, and unless you haven't heard about a bunch of decks, which a lot of these guys have, or it's like you seriously aren't hearing the slight subtle differences, and some of them are quite noticeable. So it kind of surprised me. But that's always going to be an argument that goes around and around and around as people enter and start exploring the hobby. Let's see. All right. Having a cable that costs as much as a deck or an amp makes 0 sense to me. Same. Um, so IEMs, headphones, decks, amps, cables to me, if it exceeds the cost or matches the cost of the device, unless you're using an IEM that's like $1, okay, yeah, obviously your cable's probably gonna cost more, but having these super expensive cables, to me, I'm I just haven't heard the difference um enough, and as mentioned, normally the differences that I've heard are in tonality because it's copper or it's silver or it's a hybrid of them or some other difference. Some of these cables that have come in, even ones that I've reviewed, that have all these extra gems put on it and go through these big massive amounts of building. Do they sound good? Yeah, for the most part. Are they worth the price? Probably not. um but yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from there. Your personal favorite IEM under $200? That's a good question. Give me one moment while I think about that, because sometimes prices don't. I don't have a specific, because I've reviewed so many, and so I forget like the pricing of things. Um, so bear with me. And I'm going to look at some $200 and under IEMs. Because this morning nothing is standing out immediate. I have one in mind, but I don't think that it is $200. I think it's actually more. The one that's coming to mind is the Massdrop Cadence, excuse me. Um, there's a bunch of others, but that's kind of the one that's kind of like sticking in my brain right now is the Massdrop Cadence. I recommend you go to my gear rankings, sort it by price and then by the ranking grade. Speaking of, before the confusion happens, if you've never looked at my ranking grade, I do it different than everybody else. So there's no S tier, there's none of that type of stuff. It's A, B, C, D, E, F. All right. So A is awful, B is bad, C is capable, D is delicious, E is excellent, and F is flawless. And then you have you have minus and plus. So if there is a minus, it's the lowest in that number or letter. So A minus is worse than A plus, and it's slightly worse than just a straight up A. A is in the middle. A minus is the worst of the worst. A plus is slightly better. All right. So plus is slightly better. And then the letter only is right in the middle. And then minus is the worst of that grouping. Also, my rankings don't just involve sound, they involve the overall whole experience. So I recommend you watch the video, the review, or read the review of the device. If there's not a review, it's just based off of my experience with that device, and I haven't had the ability, maybe I didn't have it long enough to do a full review, or I've heard it in the past type of thing. and I just put a grade on it. Anyways, there you go. There's an explanation of my rankings. All right. Yeah, I would go with Moondrop Cadence probably for $200 right now at current moment, just off the top of my head. There's a lot of other ones in that price point. Okay, so how do you place Aria Stealth in the around $600 landscape, heavily considering them as a replacement to my Sundara, which I quite enjoy and find wanting in some aspects. So at $600, the Aria Stealth is a fantastic value. They were significantly more expensive, and even at their higher price point before Hi-Fi slashed their prices, they were a good value. So I really love my Aria Stealth, and there's a reason why they're still sitting back there. The compared to the Sundar, a little bit different presentation. You're getting a bit bigger sound stage, more depth, better layering, better details and resolution, a little bit more accurate tone and timbre. It's not going to be quite as bright, not going to be quite as aggressive as the Sundara is. I like the Sundara, but the Aria Stealth leans more neutral analytical versus the Sundara. All right. Hibby FC3 was my first dongle. Coming from a regular laptop, a 3.5 jack into that was an insane difference in presentation. That made me a believer. Yeah. FC3 is an amazing dongle. I still use it on a regular basis. It's one of the dongles that I use when I'm testing IEMs. I find it to be a very neutral leaning sound signature. And even though it doesn't have the most power, it can drive most IEMs very well. I truly do enjoy the FC3. Carmine, yeah. Some decks have tubes for signature sound, so there's some sonic signatures for everyone. Absolutely. Some of them have tube stages. Some of them are, you can turn it on or off, which is cool. I mean, there's all kind decks have all kinds of crazy technology in them. And nice thing about it is some decks are getting cheaper and better quality. So they've come a long ways. Let's see. Melquar, did you get the Let's Shore Mystic 8 in for review? I did not. Hopefully one will arrive, but I have not heard about one being shipped yet. Kiwi Ears Key E4 is quite good. Yeah, absolutely. Truly enjoy Key E4. Completely forgot that one's in $200 price point. Also an excellent IEM of choice as well. As I said, there's a lot in there. It's so hard to put favorites for me in certain price points because I've heard so many, and I don't value things in that regard as much. I don't think of them in that way. So, but that's key for excellent. Let's see. You're still on the SM4 Stan. I don't know what that is. Sorry. You have the Stealth. It's a value way above its current price point. Yes. Detailed retrieval and soundstage is spectacular. Of course, never heard of a Susfara, but $700. Amazing. Yeah, the Aria Stealth is an excellent value, especially at the price point of $600 to $700. Okay, so I'd like to know the most preferred IEM for you, regardless of the price tag. That's the Westone Mach 60. I find it to be the most neutral, accurate tone and timbre. It has very natural sound signature, very well controlled in the bass and through the mids, and they have the perfect balance of placement. And as far as they're not too forward and not too far back, and then the treble extends nicely, and there's good air and crispness up top with enough bite and edge to things without being overly presented. like a lot of treble can be overdone and things, especially BAs can tend to be that way. And then the soundstage it does a good job with its small, medium, and large, and you actually get some of that grandness to it without sounding artificial. And it has good depth, layering, and excellent imaging and placement. I find it to be a very neutral sound, and I use it for monitoring purposes. But I also enjoy it with playback. And so every single IEM that I review is compared to the Westone Mach 60, even if I don't mention it in review, but it is compared to it to see how it's doing on all those aspects. Shawshank, it can be $150 as well. It doesn't have to be $200. I was guessing it was the Elba. Actually, the Elba, I mean, I like the Elba. I enjoy the Elba. It's a good IEM, but it's not a go-to for me. You thought that the Elba was missing bass. That's interesting. Yeah, it's very possible that you received a borked unit. I'm that's not something that was normally discussed there. I'm not, it does happen, and maybe the sealed it just didn't fit in your ears properly, because if you don't have a good seal for an IEM, that can really affect bass as well. Let's see. Thank you again, Dave, as well. Very much appreciate it. You're very welcome. Gary Wiseman, would you say your hearing has changed as you got older? And has your preference for sound signatures changed as a result? Okay, so hearing, has it changed? Yes. I mean, as I've gotten older, can I hear the furthest out? No. I'm somewhere 15 to 16K, and I did have a hearing test, not so recent. So it's not like I'm not able to hear the highest of the highs. As far as has my signature changed? Yeah, I mean, the preferences have changed. As you listen to things and as you experience things, you kind of hone in your preferences. And so and I did a write up on this a couple years ago, and when I was first really into music, I wanted to hear the bass, and I wanted to feel the air moving, and I wanted the woofers to be on the verge of just explosion. And I wanted to see how far I could push it, and then I wanted to hear all the details, and so I was like cranking things up, and I really liked the V-shaped sound. But as I started to listen, and as my music preferences changed, and I really started to listen to more acoustical music, jazz, and classical, and my love for those genres started to grow, I realized V-shaped sound didn't sound very good with those type of genres, and so I started to take a back seat and to that, and started listening to other curves, so to speak, and I started to listen. And then as I started to nitpick and listen to more neutrally leaning curves, and I started to hear things in the music. And then a friend of mine reached out to me and said, "Hey, why do you always listen to things so loud? Why do you always do increase this and do this and that?" And I started tweaking that, and I started to lower the volumes, and I started to mess around, and I started to hear even more in the music. And then I started to pay attention to what the instruments sounded like in live reproduction, and I started to compare it to what I was hearing in what I was listening to in playback. And as I started to match that up, my preference for neutral really came through, and it has been with me for years now. And so, yeah, it has changed over time. And it comes with experience, comes with what you hear. And is there a little bit of preference there? Yes. But also at the same time, you grow and you learn things, just like you do in real life with other things, if you're cook, you're going to learn techniques, you're going to learn certain things, and you're going to learn how things should taste and how things interact together. And that's the same thing with audio. Same thing with cars. And you learn and you grow and you start honing in. And getting more specific, and then you become more firm in your beliefs as to why. Why do I like this? Why do I think this? And that kind of thing kind of comes together. So yeah, things have changed for sure. Now, it is funny that you mentioned about hearing, because my hearing, I've done I haven't gone to an actual audiologist test. I did those amateur tests, just to clarify. But anyways, I had a friend who he might be even somewhere in the chat, and he is a sound technician. He's an electrician, and he does all the sound at our church, and he does works, sound regionally all over, and then he also works at a radio station and all this kind of stuff. And he came over to the church a few weeks ago and to do some work, and he admittedly admits how much he has lost his hearing as he's older up in age, and how he prefers a brighter and hotter sound because he can actually hear it. And so he was tweaking my soundboard, and he did a little bit EQ tweaks. I like it to sound like this, and I was listening back, and I immediately went and turned things down a little bit because it was a little too much for me, and a little too intense, a little too hot. And so, yeah, we do all kind of have preferences and tune things certain ways based on what we can hear and what we've heard, and we adjust. So I just found it kind of interesting, that little experience that we had. Pipe dream for me, I don't go to Can Gems or the like, so no danger there. Oh, you talk about the Susvara. It's an interesting headphone for sure. I've only heard it at audio shows. I'm not sure if I would ever own one. Let's see. Shawshank. I went to an audio store and listened to the Key E4. It was good, but the bass wasn't that fun, and also it wasn't technical, and thought it is not worth the money. I've also listened to the SimGot, and it sounded thin. Again, I haven't heard the Super Mix 4. I figured out what SM4 stood for. Key E4 bass, it's very neutral. So it would kind of sound a little uninspiring to some, so I can understand that. Let's see. Problem with the Susvara is not only the price, but the fact that I would have to possibly buy a very expensive amp to power it. Is it worth it? Again, as I said, I don't know if I would own one, truthfully. I mean, does it take a super expensive amplifier to power them? In my experiences, the only amps that I've heard it on are expensive amps, because it was that audio show. So I really honestly can't answer that question. I don't know if something that is simple as, like a Mytek HPA or, something like that would power. I honestly don't know. Because my only experience is listening to them for 5 minutes at an audio show, type of thing. Let's see. Music is the software that drives the hardware. Is there a song that you use that totally changed between pieces of gear, changing your opinion of the recording? That is a good question. So I can't think of like one example, but I have had moments for sure where you're listening to, I wouldn't say it changed my opinion about the track or the album, but it definitely changed my opinion about a source, about either the DAC or the amp or the headphone, because you're listening to the song and then you change it and you put it on another one. And let's say you listen to the same DAC and amp and headphone or a speaker for a week. And then you go and you go, all right, let's change out the DAC, and you put a different DAC on. The song will take on a different tune I don't know if it necessarily changed my opinion about the song or if it was the actual gear that was like surprising me. But for example, when I was reviewing the SMSL Raw DAC one, so I've listened to tracks, and it kind of caught me off when I first put it on, because oftentimes in my first listens I'm just hitting random through my library, and whatever song comes up, and it'll be my first song. Sometimes I'll hand select things, and lately I've been actually hand picking for whatever reason the Pistol Annies, right? And so I've been listening to them, and um, they there was a song that came on. I can't remember the title of it. Um, that when I put it on the raw DAC one, it seemed to be more forward and like full, versus everything else is kind of, it's like very even keeled. And so I was like, whoa, is this track always like that? And so I kind of had that thought, but everything else I played on it was very even keeled. And I went back to the DAC one, and again, it was like, kind of very forward. So I get what you're saying. And that as I listened to the raw deck one, I noticed all tracks sounded that way. Even tracks that were always a little bit more forward, maybe a little bit more mid focused, it kind of pushed it even more. And the raw deck one does that intentionally. So I can kind of see where you're coming from. It does make you kind of go, oh, wait a minute. Did I miss something prior? I've been listening to the song for a long time. Or is it the gear? So I get what you're saying. Melquire, now I need to go demo the West Tones. I just checked and they have one available for demo. Cool. I love the West Tones. They they're not for everybody. Not everybody's gonna really enjoy them. But for me, they are special, and they have what I'm looking for when it comes to the neutral presentation. Georgie, Alba is defective IEM. It loses bass. The more when you put it in, the more bass you're losing. I assume it's power compression issue. I didn't have that problem. So let's see. Carmine, I'm interested in hearing the new Audeze Carbon 2.0. Yeah, absolutely. I loved my Carbon while I had it. It was a fantastic, totally different than other E-stats. It just had a unique sound signature, more bassy, warm, just engaging. It didn't quite have as much of that airiness and the type of sound signature that a lot of E-stats have. This one, the Carbons just had this fullness and fulfilled type of sound. So I'm curious what the 2 does. If they can bring the detail and resolution a little bit more competitive with others, spectacular. Just wish that price point wasn't so high. Yeah, absolutely. If you have a song where there's a lot going on, lots of instruments and different voice layers, it'll show. Absolutely. There's a lot of interesting stuff. Also, I find that sometimes in the most simple of songs, if you just have vocalists, maybe a couple guitars, a piano type of thing, or 2 or 3 instruments, you can really nitpick it and it'll reveal. And sometimes when you change sources, it'll sound a little bit different. So totally, I get where you all are coming from there. It's an amazing experience when something kind of takes you off guard and you have to decipher, is it the track or is it the source? Is it the headphone, the IEM, the speaker that I'm using that's doing that? Carmine, my absolute test track album is Jazz at the Pawn Shop. If it doesn't sound amazing, there's something wrong with it. Absolutely love that. Listen to that all the time. And it's very, very well recorded and mastered, and exceptionally good. Let's see. Sorry, don't know about the mic popping. I have a Rode USB pot right here, and it's plugged in via USB into my phone. I am not doing any controls at all, so it's based off of the phone. What I will do, maybe it'll fix it. We'll keep these fingers crossed here. I'm gonna unplug it and plug it back in. So everybody, bear with us a moment. There you go. Hopefully it fixed the problem. Do apologize if it's popping. I do have at times noticed that slower internet speeds and broadband bandwidths can cause issues with USB microphones on live streams. So maybe that's causing a problem. Dave Brubeck's Take 5 is also another insanely good recording. Love that recording as well. Yes, the Aria does a really good job with placement of the instruments, and you can sit back, close your eyes, and you can go, that's right there, that's right there, that's behind. The Aria itself does a really good job with imaging and placement. Totally agree with you. Carmine, it's the joke. If I'm on life support, try unplugging it and see if you reboot. I think that's the one time you don't want to try that. I have a friend who's in IT, and he's like, I know people think I'm joking or just being, facetious, but it does fix a lot of problems. And it is true. The other one, do you have it plugged in? Do you have it powered on? Those type of things. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hopefully the microphone is fixed for you, Georgie. Got quiet all of a sudden. There we go. So we're all pretty much agreed. Great recording show off the beauty and the flaws of the hardware, but there's something more. Music is captured in motion. Yeah, absolutely. So like, there's a lot of there. This debate's been going on, and it's kind of been reinvigorated, and that is that you get the measurements and you get the cleanest sound reproduction. But the problem when you do that is you're sucking out the emotion. And I find that a lot of those measurement chasing devices do a lot of things technically right, but they lose on that emotional connection. And music has an emotion. It should drive you. It should fulfill you. It should bring a tear to your eye. It should make you smile. It should make you laugh. There's emotions that come along with it. And I find that a lot of the measurement based devices lose that. And then it just becomes ho hum. I'm listening to music, and it all kind of just runs together and nothing really connects. So good point there, Carmine. You're absolutely right. Do you have a specific favorite test track for bass? I always use Marcus Miller's Power. Now, Marcus Miller is actually really good. And yes, I actually do. So over on my website, I have some stuff about that. And I'm actually going to read off the different songs. I'm going to pull that up. Give me a moment, and I'll get that pulled up. So on my website, it's called "Does Music Preferences Impact Sound Impressions? What is Honest Audiophile Reference Music?" And I go through on it and I list the different songs and what I'm looking for. And so on there, there's a song by I think I'm saying it right. It's called the Tingville Trio. The song is called Beat. And what I'm listening for with that song is natural piano tones and timbre. I'm listening for percussion tone and timbre, and I'm also listening for bass tone and timbre. And so it's not a very complex song, but it has a very deep presentation, and it has very accurate tone and timbre. And so if things sound artificial or they sound bloated or they sound muddy, um, this track will show that. And then the next song that I listen to is by Sina A, and it's "We've Just Begun." It's a jazz piece, and I'm looking for stage depth and layering and imaging. There's a lot going on. It's a very complex type of track. And then also I'm looking for the female vocalist Sina A to be reproduced accurately, good tone, timbre, and not to have a lot of harshness and distortions in the song. And then what a little moonlight can do by Molly Johnson, another jazz song. And same thing with this. I'm looking for the female vocalist and tone in the timbre, but I'm also looking for piano. There's a lot of piano playing in it, and I'm looking to see if the tone and the timbre of the piano is accurate. And then also the depth and layering within a stage. Leslie Odom Jr., Under Pressure. It's a fantastic song. This one has a lot of detail, and so I'm looking for resolution and control and a lot of refinement and definement in those details. And then also looking for the tone and timbre and the masculinity of his voice. Next is Eric Clapton, "Change the World." In that song, I'm looking for again a male vocalist and a tone and timbre, but I'm also looking for the imaging and the placement. There's a lot going on in that stage, and it kind of stays permanent. So you want to make sure that everything stays in place. And then Yo-Yo Ma's "The Ecstasy of Gold." This song, I'm looking for natural tone and timbre of the stringed instruments. Adam Baldwin, a song called Spem and Illuium. I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyways, I'm looking for a natural tone and timbre of the instruments. And again, I'm also looking for accurate note weight and density. They have a lot of deepness into this song. And then also percussion impacts. As far as another song, I listen to "Stress" by Pain of Salvation. That one has a lot of bass. There's good sub bass extension into that. And there's also nice natural tone and timbre. And I'm looking for control because that bass can get very woolly and very muddy and bloated on things that don't do bass very well. Also looking for percussion and balance and very cohesion. This song can get out of control very quickly in the bass and with percussions. Michael Bublé, "When I Fall in Love," another jazz song, a beautifully sung song, has a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of ups and downs and elevations throughout the entire thing, and so it goes all the way from the bass, mids, and treble. There's a lot of elevations, a lot of dynamics. It's a big and bold type of song, and it has a massively huge soundstage with good depth and layering. Another song, Patricia Barber. Now, if you are sensitive to treble and you want to test treble, I highly recommend the song "Code Cool." All right, so in this song, Patricia Barber sings, and it is if you get any sort of pain in the treble, the song it has sibilance and hot treble. That's what I'm looking for. And so if you're sensitive to that, you want to run this song. It'll tell you whether or not your gear is producing properly. Christian Scott's New Orleans. This song also can be very painful in the same way. I'm looking for very forward upper mids and lower treble. I'm also looking for sharpness, harshness, and a lackluster detail retrieval. This song has some of that in it, and so if it's revealed, you know your devices are doing proper. Chocolate Chip Trip by Tool is a very much soundstage. Everything's just going around. You just have all things all around you, and it almost makes you feel like you're on a drummer's stool. So you're looking for precision a lot in the imaging. Why So Serious by Hans Zimmer. This is one of the Batman movies. And you're looking for sub bass extension. It's very deep and rumbly, and it starts out slow and builds. And then there's also a lot of bass punch, slam, and impact in there. Marcus Miller's No Limit. Told you Marcus Miller was in there. Marcus Miller, No Limit. I'm looking for bass, tone, and timbre, and also control. This is another song in which the bass line can get out of control and can become woolly and a little bit bloated and muddy on the wrong devices. Dave Holland Quartet, Conference of the Birds. This is a very interesting song, slow builder, has very natural tone and timbre on it. It also has a very realistic soundstage with very good depth and layering and detail retrieval and resolution. As everything builds and goes into the end of the song, and the orchestra really builds up. Elon Eskari from the 47 Ronin soundtrack, also is a good movie. This is just an orchestra at full throat. So you have a lot of dynamic range going on. There's a lot of percussions and good impact. And there's also a lot of instrumentation, a lot of separation between instruments. So you want to pay attention to that. Tone and timbre also is very accurate on this track. And there's a nice realistic stage. It's not a huge stage, but it has good depth and layering in it, and the imaging within the smaller stage is very, very good. Another Hans Zimmer song, 2049. This song has a lot of sub bass extension as well. It will make things get on the verge if you would like to see your woofers at max. But also, the interesting thing about this song is there's sibilance in it, and there's a lot, and so as it builds, it goes bassy to upper mids, lower treble region, and you get a lot of sibilance. And the upper mids and a lower treble also is very forward, and it's about halfway through the track, if I remember correctly. There's nice stage width and imaging as well in that track. A song that we all know is harsh is Believe by Cher. This song I test for hot treble and also for sibilance and distortion. Stanley Clark's Passenger 57, the main title track on that one. And I know I'm going through a lot of songs here, but you can go back through and track them. Also, check out the link. But anyways, Stanley Clark's Passenger 57. This is another bass extension song, has bass control. There's a lot of percussion impact in it and imaging and placement. Then you have the Slavic Radio Symphony Orchestra playing the Pines of the Appian Way. Now there are other orchestras that play this too as well. If this track is hard to come by this orchestra, but if you can come by this one, it has a very realistic soundstage, depth and layering, instrumentation, again, a lot of separation going on, and a natural tone and timbre. Houston Person, You Are My Sunshine. This is one of my favorite acoustical tracks. And for one, I love the song, but number two, it's only two instruments, and it has natural tone and timbre, and then it's very realistic detail, retrieval and resolution, and a very fantastically recorded track. And those are all the songs. All right, so let's get back to some questions now. There were some bassy tracks in there for you. Mel Choir. All right, so does tube rolling change that much of the sound signature in a tube amp, or is it a small thing in your experience? I'm not super experienced with tube rolling, so this is something that I'm not a guru or an expert on, but in my personal experience, tubes can make a difference. It kind of depends on what kind of tubes. Like 6SN7s in the different variants, things like that seem to make a little bit more of a difference, especially in like my Tor Audio Roger, which is back over here, or the TA26S. Those tube amps show more than the littler tube amps. The Oppo's Gremlin did show differences in tubes as well. So it just kind of depends on a mixture of things, I find. But some of the differences can be very, very small and hard to differentiate, and then others are very noticeable. There's a brand who measures good and sound good at the same time. It's Ayoon. I don't mind Ayoon. I like Ayoon. Ayoon has a unique presentation for sure. Um, they definitely are going for the musical side of things, which is nice, but they also include the neutral, natural stuff as well, and it kind of mixes all together. Um, Carmine, if the toes don't tap or the head doesn't bob, it's not working. And Marcus Live is amazing. Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, does every song make me, burst out into tears or put a smile on my face or make my fingers snap or my toes tap or, my shoulders shimmy or, whatever. Um, Depends if, there's a lot of things that go into that. Obviously your mood, what kind of music you're listening to, things like that. But it definitely should grip you in some way and you should get some sort of connection, for sure. Let's see. The mixing is the first and the most important thing, but the coloring makes it enticing. Too much clinical amps give me the creeps. Yeah, absolutely. When people talk about flat and neutral, they are different. Flat is flat. Neutral has ups and downs. Why? Because you're reproducing the naturalism and the actual notes that are being reproduced. If you go completely flat, you're not getting it. Flat is flat. Neutral has wiggles to it. Let's see here. Greetings. I'm a new subscriber. Well, thank you for subscribing. Appreciate that, Pat. Or pal. Pie. Pa. I like your honest opinion on audio topics. I want to buy a new closeback headphone. Looking at the FIO FT1, the Audio-Technica M40X, or the Meze Audio 99 Neo. So it kind of depends. Now, the FT1, I really like it for its technicalities, and it does a lot of things good with its tone and timbre. It just has an aggressive presentation to my ears. It's not. I'm not saying it's a bad headphone. It just if you don't mind a little bit more intensity in your presentation, the FT1. M40X is a decent headphone. It's been a while since I've heard it. If I remember correctly, it's a little bit bassy, and a little bit mid forward. The 99 Neo, I actually recommend the 99 Classic over it, but that is going to be a headphone that is more fun than either one of the other two. The other two are more leaning to the neutral side of things. The 99 Classic is my preference to the 99 Neo. The 99 Neo to me sounded a little bit plasticky, but it's not a bad headphone. It's just a little bit different than the 99 Classic. Anything else under $200? Are you kind of set on? It sounds like you're kind of set on closed back headphone. One that I would recommend that you can get that for about $150, maybe a little bit cheaper, is a Rode NTH 100. It is a little bit more balanced and cohesive sounding than the FT1, in my opinion. It is slightly warmer. Another one for dirt cheap would be the Kiwi ears. It's not the Ellipse. What's the other one? But that one is not as refined. It doesn't have as much detail and resolution as the other headphones. It is significantly cheaper. If you want to go open back, you have a few more options. Let's see. Thank you for you're welcome for the treasure trove. If you, hopefully I'll give you a few songs and some things that I'm looking for. And all of this is also listed down in the description of my videos. There's a bunch of links for various things, and I always put my music recommendations down there. If someone speaks that passionately about music, you know that you are in the right channel. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in a household that was musical. My mom played piano, also taught piano. My sister plays piano and teaches piano as well. My other sister can kind of pound out some keys on the piano, plays guitar. They all can sing. My dad can sing. My dad doesn't play. Well, I guess he kind of plays piano about as good as I do, which isn't saying much, but my dad can sing. And the funny thing is, all of them being musical, for me, I never really wanted to put forth the effort. I tried various instruments to play through my life, and I even tried to sing. I just had no interest in really putting forth the effort to hone in those skills, but I wanted to make things sound good, and I was interested in how it was done. And so, starting as a young teenager, at the church that we attended, I started working with an elderly gentleman who was the sound guy, and and he showed me how to run a board and then how to record it on an old tape deck and how to transfer from tape to CD and download and do all back way back. I mean, we're talking 90s era. And as things were just still analog and digital wasn't really a thing quite, there. And I just started getting more interested. But my music interests were, typical teenager type stuff. I was into AC/DC, Metallica, and all that kind of stuff, Nirvana, you name it. And as I mentioned earlier, I would love to see those woofers just on the verge. But as I worked the booth and then I went to college and got involved in business and I just listened to music, but music was always a part of me. And then when we came back and we moved back to Indiana after marriage and started going to this church, I got back involved working sound booth and it just reinvigorated me. And that's when I started exploring all the different types of music and really enjoying it. One genre of music that has always been a staple of mine was movie soundtracks, and I'm a Trekkie, so sorry Star Wars people, Star Trek's better, and I'm a Trekkie, and I love Jerry Goldsmith's music, and so I've always enjoyed Jerry Goldsmith's scores, and so I was listening to that growing up, and so I started listening to other movie soundtracks, and so that's always been kind of a go-to genre of music for me. Even the newer stuff that's more like progressive classical type stuff, I've really enjoyed. But anyways, let's get back to some questions here. The FT1, in my experience, are great with some EQ, but you do have to try to balance the V shape. It has a great isolation though. Yeah, that they do. I use them to play my electronic drum kit through the FK11. Interesting. Let's see. Thank you. I have a pair of AKG K240 Pros open backs already. Looking for a different sound signature. I like a little bit of spice and light bass. 240s. I haven't heard those in a long time. A little bit mid forward and a little bit spicy up top, definitely. Very good headphone. Nice tone timbre though. Let's see, favorite DAC for traveling, like on a plane. I would take a dongle, or a DAP. So usually or both. I'll take my Hibby R5 Gen 2 and use that. Also, DAC wise for travel, probably would be a dongle. Muse M5 Ultra is kind of my go-to right now. And if I'm going to use another dongle, it would probably be either a Hibby FC3 or something like that. It kind of depends on what I'm taking. I did a community post a week or two ago about what stuff I take travel wise. Any other questions, comments, concerns, anything like that? I greatly appreciate all the questions and everybody coming by in the chatter. This is something that I'm actually thinking about doing on a more regular basis. So I'm actually thinking about a couple of run it by you guys and you can give me your opinion. And then if you rewatch this, if you're not watching it live, feel free to chime in the comments. I'm thinking about doing one regular video a week. So doing that, probably keeping it a Tuesday or Wednesday like I have been, and then doing a live stream every other week. And in that live stream, I would do a review of a device. And so do a live review. It wouldn't be as detailed as the video stuff, but it would still be a full review of some sort, and you could interact and ask questions about things as that review's going on. All live streams are put back out to everybody to consume afterwards, so you wouldn't miss it. If you did miss it live, you could still rewatch it. So that's something that I'm kind of mulling around in my head to see. The one thing that is kind of I have to figure out is time frame, because I'm able to do the live stream at this time right now because I'm on vacation this week. Normally, I'm working from 10 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Eastern time. So getting up at 11 to do a live stream probably won't work on a Saturday, considering that I didn't go to bed till 6:30 in the morning. So that time may have to get changed a little bit. So anyways, those are a couple things I'm mulling around to change on the channel. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. All right, let's see here. Is the Mytek HPA and the Liberty 2 still your favorite DAC and amp? Yes. So I do have other things on my desk currently, but the Myteks are right here. And the funny thing is, I was actually going to put them up for sale. And I loaned them out and I put them up for sale, and I didn't have them on my desk for a few weeks. And I was like, I'm okay with this. I can use these other devices that I have. And then I brought them back, took them off of from selling them because I was kind of like, I kind of miss them. I put them back on my desk and started listening to them, and I realized how much I actually kind of do miss them. And so now they're back in their spot, and yeah. So the Mytek, they're not going anywhere. Let's see. But the other ones that are, the other one that is like really tempting me, and I am like, I could be okay with this, is the FIO K19. The FIO K19 is an excellent DAC and amp, and it's extremely close to HPA. The only difference between the Liberty 2 and HPA are those are slightly more analytical. They have a little bit more of a dryness to them, and the K19 has a little bit of that kiss of musicality. So it's kind of like, which one? What's the best open back and close back in your opinion? Best open back, in my opinion, that I own, is the Audeze LCD5. Best close back. It's an older headphone, but it's so good, and it still is very capable of today. And that's the Mr. Speaker's Ether C, the original. Love that headphone. Use it all the time for critical listening. It's not something that everybody would like for an everyday use type of headphone. It is very, very analytical. I don't mind it listening to music. Only problem with it is if I let my hair grow out, it doesn't fit my head. It has a small headband. But those would be, in my opinion, the two best. If you want something that's a little bit more musical, and that isn't as good, the ones that I have as far as closed back would be the Audeze LCD2 closed. A very excellent closed back headphone as well. There's a lot of other ones. My preferred closed back for mixing and monitoring is the Austrian Audio HiX 60. So there you go. All right. Have you heard the Doak Audio K5? Doak Audio K5 review will be coming. Any headphone amp or DAC amp combo suitable for IEMs with almost zero output impedance for desktop use? No ELF controls, only digital or R2R. You could go with K11 from FIO. They work very well. Of course, they do have an R2R version. They also have the non. Um, or you could go with the X Duo XAO2, which I actually prefer a little bit more than the K11s. Um, I don't know what your price point would be. You could go with the Burson Playmate 3, but it's $600, so it's about triple the cost of the X Duo and Fios. Okay, so upcoming sets on your review backlog. At the very beginning of the video, I did mention this, but I'll go through it again. I have a bunch of new people. One that's been on my desk for quite a while, and is the Fio FH19. Also have the Tin Hi-Fi C2 2025, the Tin Hi-Fi C3 Mark III, Audeze OD200, the Audeze Lowmaster, Audeze Dynabird, Kiwi Ears Aether, or Ether, whichever way they're pronouncing that. The Sansei Miori SW500H. Those are all the IEMs. Going into DACs and amps, we have the Doak Audio P1 Plus, the Fio K15, Sansei Miori SA500, Ico ITM07, Sound Blaster G8, Fosse Audio GR40, Fosse Audio MC337, Fosse Audio K7, the SMSL D400 Pro, Doak Audio K5, Fio S15, and the Fio K17, which is this one right here. And then Burson Audio, Playmate 3, and X Duo X5. X Duo X5 is a DAP, which I'm actually having problems with. So if any of you have any experience with it and know how to get it to read your SD card, let me know. There's no instructions I can find. I've downloaded my music, and I've done all the things that you're supposed to do with SD cards, with the not conversion, but where you format it. There we go. Where you format it and all that kind of stuff, and it will not read my SD card. I cannot get music onto the device. So if anybody knows how to do that, put it in the comments, and I'll try it, because I've tried everything. So that's it. That's everything that I have on the list at the moment. No particular order. That's not a schedule as to how things will get reviewed. Let's see here. +1 for the LCD5. The only headphone that has motivated me to pay more than $1,500 for it. Simply different. Yeah, LCD5 is an amazing headphone. I truly love it. And you're welcome there. And then what card and size? I've tried all kinds of different ones. I've tried ones from Sony, tried ones from, I can't remember them all. There's been like 5 different ones in different sizes, anything from 250. Actually, I tried 128 to like 2 terabyte, all the way up, anything in between, and that they're not working. So, but anyways, I'll probably reach out to them and ask, hey, how do you do this? All right, let's see. If anyone's looking for a really good dongle DAC, I love the Moondrop Dawn Pro. It's about $50, and Dawn Pro is not bad. I enjoy it. I have it somewhere around here, and then along with about 30 others. There's so many options when it comes to dongles. It's when Apple first removed the 3.5, everybody thought they were crazy. And there were only a couple options. But now there are so many dongles and things like that it's just crazy. The only thing that I've come across is I have some friends that are Apple users. I'm, of course, a Android user, but Some of them have tried my dongles, and it doesn't work with Apple, and I don't have any issues. And so um, sometimes you have to buy a particular, cable from the manufacturer or get the Apple version. I wish that they could make it so that it's universal. Best tube amp under $1,000 for me, that'd be the Tor Audio Roger. Um, I just find it to sound the most tubey that I've heard. Again, I'm not super experienced with that. Another tube amp that I really do enjoy, but it's very, very picky, is the X Duo TA26S. I find it to be extremely picky with what it's paired with, headphone wise, DAC wise, and tubes. Some of them, it just doesn't sound good at all. It's just very flat, very lifeless, and it's just. Then there's other ones that sound very thin and tinny, and then there's other ones that are just like, whoa, this is how a tube amp's supposed to sound. So it's just like extremely picky. Um, the only thing with the Tor Audio Roger is it's not the most powerful, and so it's a little bit it's a little bit picky with what headphones you can use it with. Um, so it is interesting that you mentioned about the Dawn Pro and the static. I actually had that happen to me too, and it's like jarring when it happens. I don't. I I I thought it was because I put the cable on backwards. So when I disconnected it and I changed the cable ends, it seemed to fix the problem. I don't know if that's actually it, but it could be just cables are, not very good. But I did have that problem as well. Um, yeah, I know that a lot of Apple users like to use the Apple dongle. I had one that was for Android, and I did not think it sounded good. Um, there's a lot of like disputes about where it's made and if it's for app for its if it's for an Apple device or an Android device and does it sound good. Um, for me, I haven't had a good experience with Apple dongle, and the ones my friends, the ones that I've heard, it's just kind of like, it's all right. I Okay, so let's see. Um, Heart ye, just an occasional viewer. That's fine. Um, I appreciate you coming by and asking questions. But any thoughts on the honesty of a reviewer being rather a small consideration when most reviewers are peddling false claims and I believe they hear differences? Is lying the issue? All right, so I've done some videos on this, some topics, and I'm very open. Yeah, you probably noticed this through the live stream. You ask a question, I'm going to answer it. You might not like the answer I give, but I'm going to give you an answer. Um, Honesty is the best policy, and I've lived by that policy for a long time. And in the reviewing world, I think that shilling and peddling of positivity it can be a problem. And I don't think reviewers are unintentionally being dishonest. I think that they are just trying to save face and trying to keep relationships flowing so that they can get gear, so that you can get views and things like that. And so you might not expound upon flaws. You might not really truly reveal your true feelings about a device. You just kind of go, it may be a problem for somebody else, or I noticed this, but it's not near as big of a deal, and it probably won't bother the masses, that type of thing. I think they try to really save face so that they're not hurting a relationship. Um, And then I do think that there are, some, reviewers out there who really don't understand what they're hearing, or don't understand um, how things interact and change things. Also, I think that there's some that just don't have enough experience. And so they rely on others. And so what happens is you start parroting other people. And if you get enough people to listen to, well, this one's the most common review, and so it kind of makes sense. And then the other problem is you also have a lot of the reviewers are dependent on graphs to tell them how things sound. Now, I'm not saying that graphs can't give you some information, but graphs don't tell you the whole story. And so if you're looking at a graph and you're going, oh, that's got a big, huge bass shelf, that's going to be super bassy, or that's got massively huge lift in the mids or in the treble, that's going to be super forward, that's going to be this or that. And instead of actually using their ears, because sometimes things graph really strangely but sound spectacular, and then other things will graph, wow, that thing is like the perfect graph, and then you listen to it and it sounds awful. So you can't always just go off of a graph. And unfortunately, there's a lot of reviewers that are dependent on certain things when they're doing the reviews, and they do kind of unintentionally mislead, or they just jammer on in gibberish. I recommend that you get to know a reviewer. Ask them questions, ask them specific questions, and to clarify and to give you the reasons. Get to know them. Maybe join their discords if they have a discord, or websites or whatever they have. Really pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to how they respond to questions, and then listen to what types of music they listen to, and if possible, listen to the gear that they've reviewed in the past, or whatever. If you have some of it in your collection, and compare your notes. If you hear it that way, then maybe this is a reviewer that you can kind of trust and follow, and agree with occasionally. Also, there's nothing wrong with agreeing with disagreeing with somebody's take, as long as it makes sense and as long as you can understand where they're coming from. Um, there's, unfortunately, it's pushed so much now in the audio community to get a review out fast and furiously, to hype it, to get it, promote it, get sales, get to get the to get there first. And I think that reviewers have kind of lost the connection with the community to be honest and forth and accurate, and instead of trying to convince you to get the next greatest thing. And sometimes just because it's new doesn't mean it's the best. um I still use gear that's old, and still think it sounds great. So there's, you have to be careful with reviewers. Learn them, understand them. Just because one person says something's bad doesn't mean that person is not a good reviewer because everybody else said something was good, and vice versa. Really understand where a reviewer's coming from. There you go. Honesty is the best policy. Um, all right, let's see. Android dongles are just crap. Dave, I work in IT, and Android really needs a dongle that. I disagree. I've been using Android for years, and there's really, yeah, that's your opinion. Hopefully you're joking. I kind of think you are, but if you aren't, I disagree. I don't think there's crap ones. Um, let's see. About Tantrum Origin, I'm impressed. It's pure sophisticated and musical. Voices are wow. Which USB DAC will squeeze the full potential out of them? All right, Origin. I did enjoy that. I honestly don't recall, but I think you kind of want to go with something a little bit more neutral. Hibby FC3, um, Fosse DS2, something like that. All right, let's see here. In recent months, I've started to unsub or don't recommend channels when I hear what I believe to be obviously BS based on simplistic, uncritical subjectivity mixed with some arrogance. Blind ABX has shown how wrong my experience it can be, and that keeps me humble when it comes to audio. Absolutely, and you know, as you listen to reviewers, and as you pay attention to what they say, and you know, you read the comments, see how they respond, and you know, compare things, stuff like that. You can definitely make your decisions, and you know, if you choose to, you know, you believe one thing, as I said earlier in this live stream, you know, I've spent years listening and changing and tweaking and you know all my preferences and stuff, and I used to be big into heavy rock, metal, that type of stuff, and I've kind of changed over time to, you know, I enjoy that stuff, but I'm more of a classical, jazz, acoustical type of person, and you know, progressive classical, progressive jazz type of listener, and I still enjoy a lot of movie soundtracks. And you learn what you expect out of music and how it should sound and how it should be reproduced, and you then can take your beliefs and your reasons and know why you believe what you believe, and then compare it to what they say. And if you don't agree, you don't agree. I mean, it's okay to disagree. There's absolutely no reason to be a butthole to somebody just because you disagree. You can, you know, but if they're so, you know, far off and spewing nonsense, obviously, you know, I totally get why you would, um, why you wouldn't follow them anymore. All right, so what's next here? Um, the unfortunate thing that I don't find on Dave's channel, and props to you, sir, is the overhyping on minor things. It is really sad and confusing. You can't say every single thing is great. Yeah, absolutely. And also, there's a lot of channels that if something just, they're not going to give a positive review, they don't review it. And, you know, they only review things that is going to be a positive review. What's the purpose of that? You know, I'm not saying you should go out and bash something and absolutely roast it. So if I've had things come in here to the office before, and I've listened to it, and I'm like, this thing is not good. I mean, you know, it's either I have a problem with how it's connected, or it's broken, or it's just bad. And I'll reach out to the manufacturer and I'll be like, I appreciate you sending this to me. This is, you know, it's doing this, this, and this. And they'll either tell me, hey, it's broken, send it back, or I'll be like, you don't want me to review this. Trust me, here's my thoughts. I'll give you my opinion on it. You don't want me putting this out there. But there's other things which are, you know, of similar-ish. It's not very good. Maybe this just doesn't meet my preferred sound or my preference, or it's just not good. And I'll review it. And I try not to be, you know, so critical and mean and just like, this thing is the worst pile of flaming dookie, you know, out there. Don't buy this. You know, I don't want to be that way. But at the same time, you need to get some negative thoughts out there, and you know, be like, hey, you know what? Everybody else loves this thing, and to me, it's just kind of like, it's just an average whatever price point. It doesn't do anything special. It doesn't set itself apart. Or, I'm sorry, folks, but this is it's not a good device. And honesty is the best policy, but you also have to have a balance to it, you know. But only doing positive reviews, to me, that I don't understand that at all, and you won't get that from me. And I'm definitely not going to be, okay, this one's good, and then 2 days later review this one's better, and then 2 days later reviewing this one's even better, and forget those other ones. This is it now. You know, that's not how it rolls. All right, let's see here. Very true. Words alone for an individual use can vary between people, and it takes good effort to know where a reviewer is coming from. Absolutely. And that's the reason why in all my videos I put my terms and definitions so you know which way I'm using them. And I also put my review process. That way you know how I've tested things. Because my reviews take a while. It's not like I'm just listening to them doing a video immediately. I don't do a review in a week. They take a while. Um, yeah, absolutely. You're seeking a review, not a publicity video. And a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of things nowadays, a lot of videos out there, and this isn't just an audio, this is another thing. It's all about publicity. It's all about this is how this goes. And if you buy this, you're going to get this, this, this. And if you buy it now, you get this discount and you get this. And no, I want to know, how does it perform? And one thing, another thing that people talk about a lot in comments, they'll say that longevity, they'll ask, how does this endure over time? Last for this or that, how does it work for it? And a lot of this stuff has been back here for a while. I don't change gear out over and over again. Also, I'm not just listening to something and getting rid of it immediately. I do listen to things, and then my reviews take a month or longer to do. So I kind of can tell you, hey, I don't think this thing's going to break. Now, I'm not super hard on gear. I try to pamper things quite a bit, but still, I can kind of tell you how things are going to last. Yeah, you were joking about dongles. I thought you were. If you connect a 3.5 to USB-C adapter and you use a good app to hear your music, it really is enough, of course. Better DACs mean better sound. Yeah. And there are some really good apps on Android, and I'm sure there are on Apple too. I just don't know. Like you can use UAPP or you can use Hibby, things like that. That'll, take out the MQAs and do all kinds of things, add in EQs, and there's all kinds of good things. For me, because I mostly use my computer, right? About 90% of my listening is done here at this desk through my computer, and I use Audiophile. But when I'm using portable stuff, I'm usually just going straight to the app. So I'm either just going to Amazon's app or Tidal's app, Spotify's app, YouTube, and I can't remember all the apps that I have. We have YouTube because my wife uses YouTube, and we have YouTube Family, so I get it. Same thing with Amazon. Use Amazon. I like Amazon and Tidal. Been a Tidal user for 7 years or something. And then I use Spotify free. I don't pay for Spotify anymore. I used to. But I use all those, and I just use their straight up app. And I know that's not the best way to do it, but because I'm using it in limited ways, and I figure that's just the way most people will do it. That's the reason why I use those apps that way. But yes, you're absolutely right. Dongles make a difference. Let's see. Okay, so I'd like to point that it's not always about the latest gear. Might be interesting content to talk about the old stuff that stands the test of time. Yeah, absolutely. I've actually thought about doing a video of that. Thank you for the reminder. I'll put it on my to-do list. Let's see here. Do you use EQ and how often? Yeah, I do use EQ. When I'm listening, not too much. I'll use it to kind of go, oh wow, I'm hearing something. Where is that at? And I'll kind of determine, oh, that's a 3K rise, or that's 8K, that's 12, something like that. But I don't EQ my music when I'm listening. I'm a kind of a purist in that way. I just like to play it as the gear sounds and stuff like that. But when I use EQs at church, when I'm running my board, I have to EQ. Everybody has a different voice. Microphones change things a little bit. Speakers change things, and depending on how big of a crowd you have, where they're seated, cold days, warm days, all of that kind of affects how your service is going to go. So I'm constantly fidgeting on the board, on fixing the EQ a little bit. Of course, you do have presets and that kind of stuff also on Allen and Heath. But if you're using an analog board, which we're actually going back to an analog board, and right now at our church, so you have to change things and EQ it that way. But yeah, I do use EQ. It's not like I'm like, EQ, no, never. No, I'm not that way. All right. I can understand not wanting to spend the time reviewing bad stuff, but at least have a list of what didn't make the cut. Positivity is not what is needed to help people with purchase decisions. That's a good point. Yeah. So if you're only going to do positive reviews, at least have, all right, here's my list of these didn't make the cut, and here's the reasons why, and here's my grade for it. Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea. Totally understand it. And all of the stuff that comes in for review does go on my gear ranking list. Eventually, it'll get on there. If I've heard it and I've listened to it and it's been here for a review, it at least gets a grade. Um, and then, as I said, if it's not going to get a review, the manufacturer is told why, or the vendor or whoever sent it. Really hope that audiophile reviews take the Gamer Nexus approach on tech. They make honest reviews, and makers really change the flaws. It is better for everybody. You know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because Creative has sent me some of their gear. And even though I haven't been like, oh, Mr. Positive, this thing's amazing, this thing is great with their gear, what I have noticed is that they listen to the review. And, not just mine, but other people's, and they'll be like, people didn't care for quite that approach that we took with that device. Let's change it. And they tweak it. And the next one that comes out usually has some sort of improvement. And that's also in other gaming and PC type builds. I notice that happens a lot in those type of reviews. The manufacturers really connect. Unfortunately, and to some extent here in the audiophile community, it seems like some of the manufacturers have the stiff neck. Oh, how dare you tell me how I should tune my device, But some of the other ones, especially more of the boutique stuff, they will listen, and they do make some changes and tweaks. So it kind of depends on who you're purchasing from when it comes to audio, but it doesn't seem to be quite as common in the audiophile community as it does in some of the other communities. That's a good point. Hey, Super, it's great to see you there. Thank you for swinging by the way. Sorry, I didn't see you earlier. And by the way, if you haven't checked out Mark's channel, head on over. He's a great guy. And he's one of the ones that responds and does, gives you comments and gives you good advice. So check out Super. Let's see. I would like to remind reviewers that an honest review is important in such an expensive and hard to get stuff. I live in Portugal, and we buy things not able to hear them. It would be good for all. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't have the opportunity to hear things. Like for me, even here in Indiana, the shops that are close by are still, an hour, 2 hours plus drive. And then they don't really have any of the stuff that I review. Some of the pro stuff, like West Tones and things like that, I have to drive to Sweetwater, which is in Fort Wayne, which is an hour and a half away, and they may or may not have it on demo. And then there's Indianapolis, which is south of us, about 70 miles south, and those shops, they're the high end, hi-fi type of stuff, and so it can be difficult to get somewhere to hear gear to test it. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have that opportunity. So reviews, being honest and just being telling the experience of the reviewer is important, because it does help people to kind of put it in place and go, oh, I can kind of see where they're coming from. I understand, the analogy that they use there, or I see the graph here and it makes sense why they say certain things, and then when they explain it and fill in the details, it tells the rest of the story. So yeah, honesty is the most important thing. And unfortunately, a lot of reviewers are just parroting off of each other, it seems like. Well, I don't think I have the same sound preferences as Super. It still is quite useful to hear different opinions. Absolutely. Totally. There's, I find, for me as a consumer, I find it very useful to listen to both sides, to hear alternate opinion, because sometimes they'll point something out and then you'll be like, oh, wait, I didn't think of it in that way. Why it does this, or this, or their music might be, what they're listening to is causing that, or what gear they're using, things like that. And so you can kind of get a different opinion and a different feel, and then you kind of mix all of those thoughts together and make your choice. Whereas if you're just depending on one person, always say that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad, you're going to really be pigeonholing yourself. And you're probably going to end up with a lot of gear that sounds the same. I'm curious to find out how many units of these IEMs and cables that are bought. Anywhere to find that information? Are you referring to like what I've reviewed, or are you referring to like the manufacturer numbers? I don't know if you would have access to like manufacturer or vendor numbers. As far as for me, everything that I review, I put on whether or not I purchased it or I received it, and if it was loaned. And it's pretty well split. A lot of the IEMs that I review are received, and I don't have to return them. DACs and amps, depends on who the vendor is. Manufacturers usually tend to ask for it back. And I do purchase a lot of stuff as well. But I'm not purchasing as much as I used to for several reasons. Number one, I am getting more gear in, and number two, money, and things are expensive. But yeah, I'm very open about that. If you go to my gear rankings list, there's a column on the far right on every one of the tabs that'll tell you if it's been purchased, gifted, or loaned. And if it's gifted, it's just a manufacturer or vendor or person that supplied it has said you can keep it. Or we have an agreement. Like some of the vendors, I don't even have to ask anywhere. They've just said, don't return anything. We'll ask you or instruct you otherwise. And and that is something that gets mentioned a lot with like, can you trust a reviewer that receives product? Can you trust a reviewer that gets affiliate links, or that has discount codes for their vendors, or things like that, or has monetization on their videos? Monetization is based off of YouTube views and advertising. I have no control as a content creator. I have no control over what advertisement you see. That's based off of your viewing history. That's based off of your preferences and your Google searches and all that kind of stuff. Monetization is just based on people watching my content. So if views are down, which they are now, currently, my views have dropped significantly over the last several months. My monetization number has gone down significantly. And if I get to a certain point, YouTube won't send me any money because the advertising's not there. Affiliate links, I have no problem with having an affiliate link. No one uses mine. I really don't get any money off of affiliate links. Where I have a problem with someone having affiliate links or discount codes, things like that, is when that content creator pushes it. Hey, use my affiliate link. This is the link. Use it. I want money. It's like a money grab, and they're pushing you to get to purchase the product based on watching their review and using their affiliate link. I don't do that. The affiliate link is listed down in the bottom of the description. The purchase links that are listed at the top of my description are never affiliate link. If you want to use my affiliate link, you have to go all the way to the bottom of the description of the video, click on the store link, and then find your device and purchase it. So I don't really use affiliate links properly. And as far as other things like Patreon or wherever we get money from, YouTube, if somebody gifts me anything like that, I'm not driven by that. And if products are gifted to me, hey, you can keep this product for the review, fine. I don't get excited about it. It's just another product to review. It's not driving force of, oh, I'm so excited, I got a review from I got a product from this company. That to me, that doesn't matter. It's part of my job. part of what I do. It's just something else to review. Unfortunately, I can't say that all reviewers are that way. Some put more of a focus. Anyways, hopefully that answered your questions. I was planning on only going for 2 hours. I have gone a little bit over my planned time by 15 minutes. No biggie. I have enjoyed all the time spent with you all. I appreciate everybody swinging by. Appreciate Super coming by and saying hello and commenting a little bit. Greatly appreciate that. Check out his channel and tell him I sent you. If you haven't already subscribed to him, Mark's a great guy. And then any other reviewers that are in here that I missed you, sorry if I missed you, but thanks for coming by. And for everybody else that watched, thank you very much. We'll do this again. As mentioned, I am thinking about doing this on a more regular basis, so give comments down below if you would like to see live reviews done. And then I think that's it. So thank you very much for everybody spending their Saturday, whether it's morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is. Thank you very much for coming by, and we will talk to you all later. Thank you very much. Don't forget to give a thumbs up, thumbs down, like, and subscribe. Have yourself a great day.